Hey everybody, I'm Meinke here from MLive.com. Join by Nate Atkins. We're at the MLive Eastern Market Bureau, otherwise known as my apartment, wrapping up season 1 of the Bob Quinn era. It was a season of ups and downs. You know, they won 9 games, Nate. They made the playoffs, but no championships. They lost all 6 games against playoff teams. They lost 4 straight down the stretch. I think we saw obvious development and growth from the franchise as a whole, but obviously a lot to be considered going forward. What do you make of Bob Quinn's first year and some of the moves he made and how they panned out?
Yeah, I think he did a pretty good job to get this thing started on a pretty good track. He was dealt a difficult hand at start when Calvin Johnson retires, his best player. He doesn't even get to see it all, so he goes out and he replaces him with Marvin Jones in free agency. I thought that was probably the one move you can most question out of Bob Quinn was the Marvin Jones signing just from a financial standpoint. I think he got a good player. But overall, I think his free agency class panned out pretty well. Got a couple steals there with like Anquan Bolden and Andre Roberts. His draft class contributed up and down. And you know, one thing to his credit, and also that really helped out, is all those guys seem to stay healthy, and that's a big thing for your GM. For your GM is to have your big assets stay healthy, stay available. They did that and they contributed, and that's what you saw, a good but not great team this year.
I thought it was interesting that his biggest free agent move was one of the ones that didn't really do much, particularly after the first month of the season. Marvin Jones had a real hot start, obviously faded down the stretch. Marvin, when he talked to you and some other reporters after the playoff loss, he had expressed frustration with his season, vowed to be better. Quinn said that he liked that approach a lot. He said his season wasn't nearly as bad as Marvin made it sound, but certainly I think the Lions are expecting more from him down the stretch. I really like what Tavon Wilson was able to do, Raphael Bush. I mean, the defense struggled this year at times, particularly in the front 7, right? I mean, they didn't get enough pressure on the quarterback. I mean, they were really inconsistent in the pass rush. The linebackers left a lot to be desired. Certainly the injury to DeAndre Levy played a role in that. But the strength of the defense became the secondary, and the depth, particularly at safety, really helped alleviate some of the early season issues, especially with covering the tight end. That was, I mean, it's easy to forget now because they got a lot better in the last 2 months of the season.
Right.
But early on, that was a huge problem for the Lions. The rise of a guy like Miles Killebrew helped alleviate those problems and concerns. You saw Bush and Tavon Wilson on the field at the same time quite a bit, along with Glover Quinn. I mean, the line safeties, I think they were second in the league in terms of interception. I mean, those guys made plays back there. So, that was, I thought, a really nice move from Quinn, adding some depth to the secondary, and ended up being kind of the bailout package, if you will, for the defense.
Yeah, it was interesting. I know coming into the year, a lot of people talked about the secondary as the weak link of this defense. It ended up, I thought, being the strongest of the 3 areas. And he went right at that, with what you mentioned with 2 safeties in Bush and Wilson free agency against Killebrew. Even Johnson Batamosi, that was a nice pickup. When Darius Slay got injured, I thought he filled in pretty reasonably well, considering the guy who's taken over for. So I think what Quinn did best in his first year is address some where they were clearly weak and made it better. That was in the secondary. I thought it was also up front. His first 3 picks were in the offensive and defensive lines. And they still weren't that good in those areas, but they're better. They got building block players like Taylor Decker. And I think you look across the board, I'd be most inspired going forward by that first-round pick of Taylor Decker. I think you look at a guy who played every single snap, who, he had some tough battles there. And I know Olivier Vernon got to him a little bit, but I thought he was outstanding against Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett in the playoff game. He's a guy that just was there all the time. He looks like that potential franchise left tackle you want with a quarterback like Matthew Stafford.
Can you imagine where that offensive line would have been without Taylor Decker? I mean, certainly there are still needs on the offensive and defensive lines, particularly on the offensive line when it comes to the run blocking. But he made huge strides. Him and Graham Glasgow. People I talked to in Allen Park are really impressed by Graham Glasgow, not just by how well he played, and I believe he had 11, if not 12, regular season starts, plus he started in the playoff game. But he did it with a very difficult assignment. He was practicing at center throughout the offseason. When Laken Tomlinson started struggling, so they moved him to guard. He was an improvement up there instantly. And then Travis Swanson goes down with a brain injury, and he moves back to center, which is a very difficult thing to do. We saw how much Swanson struggled last year at center in his first tour of starting experience there, and that was with a year of practicing at the position. So they move Glasgow back to this tough position for rookies, and he, in a single week, is able to to get adjusted to the position. And he wasn't great at center, but he was serviceable. And I think he's impressed a lot of people in Allen Park with how well he's played and with some difficult assignments. So the situation there is definitely better. I believe one of the big reasons why Bob Quinn brought back Jim Caldwell, and he talked about the consistency of Caldwell and their working relationship, and certainly those things are important. But I look at player development too, from Jim Caldwell and his staff. They did a very nice job of developing some of these guys, and even if you look at the long-term view of guys like Eric Ebron is a lot better than he used to be. Theo Riddick, I mean, he didn't play as a rookie. Now he's one of the best pass-catching tailbacks in the game. That helps. And you go on and on and on. And then we go to the rookie class. Bob Quinn's first class obviously has a lot invested in. You see huge gains from guys like Taylor Decker and Graham Glasgow. Miles Kilbur wasn't playing at the beginning of the season, playing a critical role by the end. A'Shawn Robinson was playing a rotational defensive tackle role at the beginning of the year. By the end, he's a starting defensive tackle, the most effective defensive tackle on the roster at the end of the season. That's a huge reason why. Now you take that forward, the biggest leap guys typically make is from year 1 to year 2. I think Bob Quinn is hopeful that they can build on this development they had in year 1. They got a foundation there. I think certainly you expect something better from his rookie class and all the gains you're able to get this year and build on that going into next year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see him this year, identify what their weaknesses and go after it the way he did last year. I think right now that's the pass rush. It just wasn't good enough this year, and part of it was Ziggy Ansah's injury. But beyond that, it still felt down the stretch when Ziggy was back to close to his former self, he was the one guy they were relying on. If it wasn't him or Kerry Hyder kind of cleaning up, they didn't have it. So, his A'Shawn Robinson pick certainly looks nice. He's going to develop a pass rusher there, and is a good run stuffer. But I think they need someone else on the interior there that's going to really get after the quarterback. And it's going to be interesting to see how he does it, because they want larger defensive tackles with the cover 4 scheme that Terrell Austin runs, where he moves his safeties back. They want guys stout at the point of attack. That's what A'Shawn Robinson was. Can you find a guy like that who can also add some pass rush? I think that's going to be a big question for him this offseason.
I'm putting you on the spot here, but real quickly, what grade do you give Bob Quinn in year 1?
I think I give him about a B+. I think he did quite a nice job, but I think the Marvin Jones, the money there was probably the one downside. Could have done a little bit more at wide receiver, but I thought it was good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll go B+. I mean, I don't think it was an A or an A-, but he certainly did better than B, I think, too. I mean, he made the roster better. There's 53 spots on a roster. There's only so much money to spend in free agency. Yep. Only so many free agents that want to come here in the first place, and you only get so many draft picks.
So much you can do in 1 year.
Right, but I think you saw substantial gains from the franchise. I think there's a lot to be optimistic about going forward, despite the obvious disappointing finish for the Lions this year.
Yeah.
That's what we got for today. For Nate, I'm Kyle. This right here behind my head is Vladimir. I know you guys have been asking about him. I don't actually know him. It's just random. I saw it in the store and I just bought it. I just named him that.
When have you ever done that?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. For the three of us, I'm Kyle. We're MLive. Keep it right here.